Welcome back to Royal Productions, but if this is your first time, basically what we do here is cover crypto news, blockchain, anything to do with the infrastructure of our new digital system. My name is Louis, and if you enjoy the content, you know what to do. Make sure you guys stay to the end of today's episode because it's a jam-packed episode with a lot of information. Today is Friday, and looks like the market is bleeding, or we're about to start bleeding, but we're going to cover the news really quick after we cover these markets. All right, so total crypto market sitting at 2.18 trillion. Looks like we're coming down. Yesterday it was at 2.22. We have Bitcoin sitting at 63,000, still fighting that 65 to 67 range. Ethereum 1,800, XRP $1.07, Solana 73. If you guys want to see the rest of these markets, you guys can pause it really quick. Okay, moving on to the first article I have for you guys today. Strategy books 8.2 billion Q2 loss on Bitcoin price decline. So we've been covering MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor and how his company just isn't going to probably be around in a few years, but we'll come back to that article in a second. Next on the list, global banks test tokenized money for cross-border payments in 1 million BIS pilot. They use Project Agorá. We're going to cover what Project Agorá is and the banks that were involved in this transaction. All right. Ondo Finance weighs acquisition worth up to $500 million. So the acquisition hasn't been made public yet, but the acquisition is valued at 250 million to 500 million. And if Ondo Finance is making a purchase like this, it means something big for the company. But remember, these are signals. Read the articles for yourself. They will be linked down below. All right, next thing I have for you guys today. Fake staking site drains 8.5 million in XRP from dozens of investors promising easy yield. Okay, be aware of what's happening out there, y'all. Remember, not your keys, not your crypto. All right, moving on. Bitcoin and Ethereum markets are ruled by perps. SpaceX showed how far their influence can go. We're going to cover this. It talks about how most of the market right now is basically built off leverages and shorts and longs, roughly about 93%, but we're going to get into that in a second. Excuse me. Last article I have for you guys today. World Cup generates 20 billion in blockchain prediction market value. And this is huge. So make sure you guys stick around. We're going to cover this. And I just think like the prediction market and what's happening with crypto and just AI is going to make our system just explode out of nowhere. But all that coming up next. Alrighty, first article I have for you guys today. Strategy books 8.2 billion Q2 loss on Bitcoin price decline. We're gonna scroll down here because this price up here is wrong, but we'll come right down here. Strategy MSTR, the world's largest corporate Bitcoin holder, reported Thursday an 8.2 second quarter net loss after the cryptocurrency price decline erased billions of dollars from the value of its digital asset holdings. So basically, as you guys just heard there and we read together, MicroStrategy and the strategy behind what they're doing is not really working. It looks like, especially while the markets are bleeding, it looks good when the markets are going up, but when it's bleeding like this, your strategic plan has to be at least 90% certain. But we don't know. We're going to continue covering them and we're going to see what happens in the future, but it's up to you guys to do your own research. The company held 843,000 Bitcoin as of July 26, up 25% from the start of the year. At current price, the stash is worth roughly 54 billion compared to the acquisition cost of 63 billion. So basically, you just subtract this number from this number and you'll get roughly how much they have lost, which is this number right here, the 8.32 billion unrealized markdown on the Bitcoin holdings under fair value accounting. So it talks about the fair value accounting. So I believe what that means is it takes all the Bitcoin and it puts them into an average and then it goes from there. So if they bought it higher, the average goes up. If they bought it lower, the average comes down. Talks about fair value accounting. Okay, so if you guys want to know more about this, make sure you guys read it. But I just think this is very, very strange because Michael Saylor had a company and did something similar to what's happening with his company now. It kind of coincides to what happened before. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but you know, tire can never change its stripes. Okay, remember that. moving on. All right. Global banks test tokenized money for cross-border payments and 1 million BIS pilot. Okay. We can go down here, give you guys the stats. Okay. A group of major lenders settled a real cross-border payment using tokenized central bank reserves and commercial bank deposits across 6 currencies in major test of technology stack. The test processed about 1 million in transfers through 30 transactions that settle roughly in 80 seconds on a shared ledger, improving traceability while operating alongside existing payment systems. So I'm not going to cover it too much because let's just look at this chart really quick. Look at the screen if you guys can right now. You have all these the banks at the top, right? You have Korea, Japan, Switzerland, Euro system, United Kingdom, and the United States. And remember, they all have their own regulation. They all have their own way of doing things, right? But the money gets put into this unified ledger right here, as you guys can see this orange part of it. Okay. Then it comes out on the other side to either Japan, Korea, Switzerland, Europe, or the United Kingdom. So once it gets into once these companies at the top, F1, FI2, FIN, once these companies put their money into this unified ledger, any of these companies can use that liquidity and make a transfer. So basically, if you have like the yuan and the dollar, they can trade some stuff. Say, for instance, Korea doesn't accept the dollar, yuan can be traded for the dollar and then go into a different currency. Okay, so basically, as you can see here, here's a next stack. Underneath excuse me, underneath the unified layer, you have the output of it, what happens for the transaction coming out on the other side. Okay, then you can see these little I guess blocks here. When it comes out on the other side, it's regulated. It goes through the same operating system as above here. So as it comes in here, it goes through these regulations and systems, comes into here, trades off, and then comes back out on the other side as, you know, the regulations allow it to. So it's kind of hard to explain, but this is huge because this is cross-border payment. Okay, and I'll read about it a little bit right here. Remember, try to explore this diagram and research it on your own to understand exactly what it means. Here goes the little things down here so you guys can see what's happening. UI based interaction, which is this part, what I was trying to explain. But yeah, make sure you look at it for yourself. The project fits into a border shift of stablecoins and tokenized assets gain traction across global finance. Asset managers have begun issuing tokenized money market and private credit funds, while stablecoins are increasingly being used for cross-border payments and corporate treasury options. So it's not just about the whole idea of tokenized assets and stablecoins. As we read up here, they basically used central bank reserves, tokenized central bank reserves, and deposits across 6 currencies and major tests. So they were able to make this transaction with reserve currency, a private banking system. Just to me, when I see this, it lets me know that, okay, we might be having these problems on the outside with these different regulators and stuff like that. But behind closed doors, like the BIS, they are piloting these different type of, you know, systems to help with interoperability, to help with cross-border payments, to help with the guardrails and walled gardens of this ecosystem. So I love this, especially when it's bringing different countries in together, which is hard because each country has their own regulations and way of doing things. But when you're able to get these countries and businesses on a unified front just to help with cross-border payment, it means a lot for the system. Okay, so make sure you guys read this. This is huge information. Okay, and as you guys see here, 28 banks, including JPMorgan, Citi, UBS, of course BIS, because they're the ones in charge of what's happening here. But yeah, it's a great movement into the future. Make sure you guys read the articles, they're down below. All right, moving on. Ondo Finance weighs acquisition worth up to 500 million. The tokenized asset firm is considered an acquisition valued at 250 million to 500 million as consolidation accelerates across crypto infrastructure. So I'm not sure, it hasn't came out yet, okay, about who they're going to uh make a purchase or acquiesce, we could say. I think that's the word. Hopefully it is. Let me know down below if it is or not. But basically, um according to a person with knowledge of the matter, so basically an insider came out and said they're going to make this acquisition, and it didn't cover who said it exactly, but we'll see. Founded in 2021 by a former Goldman Sachs executive, Ondo Finance is a tokenized platform that brings traditional finance assets on chain. Okay, so this part alone right here, it was founded by a former Goldman Sachs executive and executives. That right there alone should tell you what Ondo is about. So remember, follow those breadcrumbs until you get to the loaf, okay? And when this news comes out about who they might acquire, then I will explain it and give it to you guys. But until then, we just gotta keep our ear to the streets with this knowledge. All right, moving on. All right, fake staking site drains 8.5 million in XRP from dozens of investors, promising an easy yield. So we can go down here. It wasn't that many. It was basically 71 investors, and they roughly had 3.4 million XRP that was worth $8.5 million last year. So be careful. Basically, it was a fake Flare network staking site. And if you guys knew anything about Flare was being given to XRP holders and stuff like that. There was a program with them. And I guess this site was a fake one. So be careful. Like I said earlier, not your keys, not your crypto. I've been staying away from a lot of these staking platforms, the AMM, all this stuff, just because once things are set in stone, then I will start operating in the system. But for me personally, my financial advice for me is waiting until the smoke clears. Let all the ash come down and we rebuild from there, because I don't know how it is with you guys, but I don't have time to lose money in this new ever-growing system. You get me? I'm not the type to hang on to my money and think it's life and everything, but I'm not gonna be allowed to be scammed out of my money as well. So just be aware of what you're getting into, what projects are there, and that's why we give you this news. Remember, always do your own research when it comes to this stuff. It's not hard, you know what I mean, to figure out what is the best move for you and yours. Okay, moving on. This right here is crazy. All right, the jam-packed episode. But Bitcoin and Ether markets are ruled by preps. SpaceX showed and how far the influence could go. So you guys can read this article, but here's a diagram. We're gonna go to another diagram right now. But perpetual futures, also called perpetual swaps, perps for short, are leverage-friendly contracts that never expire. And now they account for roughly 93% of all crypto future volumes, with daily perps volumes routinely running larger than the spot market underneath it. So you guys have to understand what that means. We're going to go down to this chart right here. So take a good look at this. It took me a while to understand this, but you have the purple, which is the futures demand, which is considered leveraging as well. Then you have this gray mark, which is the spot demand. Okay, and then you have this black line, which is the actual price, as you can see here on this diagram. So the purple outweighed the spot demand almost always when it was moving up and moving down. So that's what they're kind of saying here, is that the demand of the futures outweighs the demand of the actual currency itself, which is crazy to believe. But we're gonna go to a major okay, which brings us back to the funding rate. Because a perpetual contract never settles, nothing forces its price back towards the spot the way an expiry date does for a traditional future. Instead, every few hours, whichever side of the trade is crowded pays the other. So let me see. So basically, when it came to original trading, there was a deadline for your future. When it comes to crypto, there is no deadline. You can put in a bid and leverage it 50% and still not ever get liquidated, as long as the price keeps moving up or down based off how you placed your bet, quote unquote, because that's what it is. You're betting on the market. Anyways, just be aware of what's happening. Let me see. I wanted to pull up that part, but yeah, there's a couple of charts here. Make sure you guys read it and understand. In these periods, spot demand was contracting while the perps demand expanded. Thus, the perpetual futures market was leading price despite demand contracting on spot market. Okay, so it talks about how this price was brought down not because of the spot, because of the future demand. Okay, so yeah, be aware of what's happening with this market. They basically said perpetual futures is 93% of all future volumes, with daily preps volume routinely running larger than the spot. So understand that I think this market is flooded. This kind of goes hand in hand with gold and paper gold, you know what I mean, where people are trading gold on the live market, but really there isn't the same ratio as what's being traded. So I think that we're going to run into a major dip where we get some of this leveraging out the way. I think they're going to bring down the leverage, because when you have the data being flooded with the data from perpetuals and you don't look at the market and the market doesn't, there are certain things to check the market and indicators for that, but most regular spot traders or people who are investors don't understand and do not chart in the futures demand. Okay, and I believe you can do that, but for the most part it's paper trading at this point. It's leverage. Some people can 50x leverage. Okay, but anyways, be aware of what's happening. Understand that they're spotting these things, and when things are over leveraged, this market gets just destroyed. But anyways, moving on. Last thing I have for you guys today: World Cup generated 20 billion in blockchain predictions market value. So this is huge. All right, so the FIFA 2026 FIFA World Cup drove 20 billion in blockchain based predictions market volume and 24 million in digital collectible trades. Okay, so that means like the NFTs and stuff like that. Let's see, it talks about okay, here we go. Chainalysis said fewer than 1% of wallet participated in the World Cup prediction markets had ties to illicit actors, though the identified roughly 5.4 million in flows originated from sanctioned entities and other illicit sources. So that's not bad, you know what I mean. We were talking about 20 billion and only about 5.4 million was and originated from entities and other illicit sources, well, sanctioned entities. But yeah, I think this is great for the whole market, because like everyone watches soccer, you know, even I watch soccer a lot more than I did any year prior to this, but it also came with predictions as well. I was betting over there, I was having fun trying to pick which person or which team was going to win the gold cup and the gold foot and all the trophies that come with it. It was a good time, and it's stressful. If you guys ever betted on a game, it gets stressful. But I just think this is great, because when we're talking about the World Cup, when we're talking about this new system and prediction markets, it's worldwide. Okay, so there's a lot of money out there to be made. Just remember to always do your own research, and if you guys want these articles, they'll be linked down below. I'm out of here for today. Hopefully you guys have a great Friday and weekend. Stay out of trouble, y'all. Until next time.